How can the offense get themselves back on track? That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this WTSP Wednesday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at eKlosky WTSP. Of course, you can catch everything that Evan is doing on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. Check out my stuff over at the 813.tv and become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Taking a look at the Chargers matchup, and of course, Evan breaking out more predictions. Hopefully, his predicted player of the game doesn't get hurt again this week, but we'll talk more about all that stuff coming up in a little bit. I'm not saying that you were a curse. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm just saying I hope that whoever you think has the potential to have a big game actually plays the whole game.
But it's the first time that happened, knock on wood.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not saying like it was a jinx or anything that you put on Antoine.
I'm just saying that my pick was undefined.
Exactly. Okay. That's a perfect way of putting it. And then you got hosed out of your bowl prediction. But we'll talk about all of that stuff coming up a little bit later. Let's start with this offense. And Evan, I had a lot of people. I saw a lot of people on Twitter. I saw some people in the live chat on YouTube after the game starting to throw some shade Liam Cohen's way. But this is 2 weeks in a row now that the offense has seemed to have some trouble. So they had trouble against the Panthers. They couldn't get anything going until the fourth quarter. Then this past week, they started off on absolute fire against the Raiders, scoring on their first two possessions. You got Rachaad getting in the end zone. You got Jalen McMillan, the birthday boy, getting in there. And then they have 6 straight possessions that end with either a turnover or a punt. What do you feel is going on with the offense, and how can they get things back on track? And then how much of these struggles do you feel can be blamed on Liam Cohen and the play calling?
First off, I want to say this. The offense produced 420 yards, okay? They scored 4 touchdowns, right? So they had 4 dominant drives. I would say that one of the drives was saved because Mike Evans made the most athletic play of his career. But they just, after that happened, just ferociously went down the field, right? So you had 4 drives where you just completely throttled Vegas. And then the other ones were not so good. So, you know, when you put the 50-50 game out there, like, you know, half the drives were terrible, some turnover stuff, half the drives were amazing. I don't know if that game was necessarily Liam Cohen has lost his fastball. I think I thought the Raiders did some really nice things on the defensive line that made Baker maybe a little bit uncomfortable, made some of the O-linemen a little bit uncomfortable, but they were able to still run the ball with a lot of success. One of the turnovers was an amazing play on a screen where, to me, you just tip your cap. Another one was a miscommunication. They didn't identify the blitz that the Raiders had. Baker simply has to just hold on to the ball. That was not you saw the blitz coming right at you. It was Rachaad versus 2. You're going to lose that battle. You got to just squeeze the ball. And the third interception was probably horrendous decision on Baker, but I would probably say Liam Cohen made the wrong call there. You had a 9-yard run, 2nd and 1. I know you want to kind of use that down to make a splash, but I think he led Baker into a really bad spot trying to make a decision there when he could have just ran the ball, picked up the first down, and kept on going. So I think it was more of a Baker issue than a Liam Cohen issue. Baker was uncomfortable I don't want to say the entire game. He started off the game and looked like a Hall of Famer. It was remarkable where it just completely fell off the table in the second quarter. Typically when Baker goes bad, he always says that I got to watch my feet, that I'm moving too fast. Think that was probably what was happening. He was completely out of sync with Mike Evans and even some other plays to Cade or to Jalen. Just wasn't quite there. Things were open. Mike was open a couple of times. He's staring right at him, but Mike hasn't left his break yet. And then he's moving on to his next read. Then, you can even think about the one with Jalen. Maybe McMillan has to get his head around quicker, be a little bit quicker, but also, boom, right off the face mask, right? Just a hair off. There was one to Otten. I'm forgetting the specifics around that, but it felt like the offense was working. It just, Baker was out of sync with the world around him. And I don't know if that was the receivers not working with Baker or Baker not working with the receivers. Whoever you want to blame, whatever, they're out of sync. So that's why I kind of lean towards it being a Baker issue, because ultimately these are timing mechanisms that are thrown off. So I would like to see, personally this week, and I know he's battling injury stuff and whatnot, but I would like to see Mike Evans practice this week. I know he's a veteran. He doesn't have to practice to get ready for the games mentally, but that was a game for me where it looked like physically they just weren't there often enough, even though Mike had certain looks that I thought he could have taken advantage of. I also think Liam can do a little bit more featuring Mike. I think that Liam used Mike a lot to gravitate coverage towards him, which is smart. Look, Mike's a team player, man. He gets it. It's just sometimes you got to also remind yourself it's Mike frickin' Evans and not always use him as the gravitational pull and trust that he can make some things working. But yeah, I'm not in the middle there. It felt like Liam Cohen was not in sync, but factor in some penalties, when they get off track, I will say they don't really have a great rhythm to getting back on track. That's, I think, sometimes, they get a penalty. It's like, oh crap. Now what are we doing? We kind of like thrown it. Then he abandons the run and they kind of make themselves one-dimensional. So I think Liam can still maybe run a little bit more in some not so favorable downs, but the one of the turnovers happened because of a phantom hold on Tristan Wirfs, right? I mean, If that hold doesn't happen, maybe that turnover doesn't happen, but they went from picking up a first down to 2nd and 11, and they got put behind the sticks. And not saying that that's Tristan's fault or, whatever. That stuff is bad. It was a bad call from the refs. That stuff happens in games, though, and you got to overcome it. And I just felt like that was sort of the high. That was my big takeaway from the game. Just they got a little bit off track, and when they did, bad things happened, and Baker made a couple too many mistakes, which that always seems to be the Baker Mayfield thing. When he makes one mistake, it's going to ripple into another. Now, he can course correct, but it's going to, think about a golfer. He's not going to course correct after one bad hole. It sometimes takes a couple of bad holes, and then all of a sudden he's piping them down the fairway again.
Yeah, well, how exactly does Evan Klosky feel that this Buccaneers team can stay on track and take it to the Los Angeles Chargers? That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. With the seasons changing, I'm already dreaming of a warm weather getaway. I love using points for travel, and I'm always looking for ways to earn more to book my next flight or hotel stay. Here's a life hack for you. Built lets you earn points on rent payments and redeem them towards flights, hotels, and a lot more. One of your biggest investments should get you more than just a roof over your head. Let me explain. There is no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones that you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards future rent payments and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/lockedonnfl to start earning points on your rent payments today. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. The new Locked On NFL is here, and it's 2 shows every day. You got the Madman Tyler Rowland kicking your morning off with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make it your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. The Buccaneers are heading to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers, who have lost 2 of their last 3, but have been a really solid football team this year. And I think kind of much to the surprise of quite a few people, given everything that kind of transpired in the offseason. But J.K. Dobbins has been a big part of their team. He's dealing with an injury. Justin Herbert, I think, has exceeded all expectations for this season after they got rid of Mike Williams and they got rid of Keenan Allen. But they're top 10 in passing defense. They're top 15 in run defense. The number 1 scoring defense in the league, allowing just under 16 points a game. On the flip side, I realize that I just talked about Dobbins playing well, Herbert playing well, but they're scoring just over 21 points per game. That's 20th in the NFL, middle of the pack in rushing offense, bottom 3rd in passing offense. Evan, how do the Bucs attack the Chargers this week as the Bucs continue to lose key pieces to the team? But if they're going to get a huge upset win in a game that I think most people had circled as the one they were going to most likely lose coming out of the bye week, I mean, what's the move here? What's the strategy? Let Todd know right now exactly how he's going to win this game.
Keep running the ball. I mean, that's the thing that's working for this Buccaneers team. And when it comes down to rushing defense, remember, you always want to look at yards per carry, because game scripts naturally are going to push maybe rushing yards against or passing yards against. It all depends, right? If you're a very good team, typically you're giving up less rushing yards because teams are passing on you at the end of games, vice versa. Yards per carry against the Chargers are 4.6. That is the same as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you're facing pretty much your defense, and you at home can dictate how much you love the Buccaneers' run defense. And I think we all believe that it can be good at times, but also isn't as good as it once was. The Raiders, mind you, were 4.4 yards per carry on the season, or they are currently 4.4 yards per carry. And you just, I think, ran for 5.8 against them, something like that. So I think that there's some stuff that they can do, certainly to still run the ball against the Chargers. And you mentioned it. The Chargers are an efficient offense. They're not an explosive offense. They're not someone who's going to go out there and want to run a track meet with you. they're going to look like the Raiders did coming out of the third quarter, coming out of halftime in the third quarter, where they want to spend 10 minutes on a drive and milk it for all it's worth. Harbaugh is probably going to go full on Michigan in this game, where they can probably pick up, a little bit here, a little bit there, and slowly move down the field, putting points on the board, while the Bucs are, I've said it a lot this year, and it's going to have to be more of that, considering they have no safeties and one working linebacker. They're going to have to bleed yards and step up in the red zone, which is, Tyke had that big interception against the Raiders when they were making a big drive like that. I know that they should have had 2 more turnovers with interceptions, but they were able to force some pressures in those spots to really get the Raiders into unfavorable downs. That's what they're going to have to do. And the biggest thing with the Chargers is that they have a little bit of Bucs in them, that the Chargers and the Bucs, when they get hot, the offense looks unstoppable, but they also go cold in stretches too, where it's like they just vanish. And the Chargers have injury issues too. Their J.K. Dobbins is out, so they're working with kind of their backups at running back. So their rushing game might not be as explosive. Justin Herbert is banged up a little bit. I'm sure come game day he'll figure it out, and he'll use his legs the way that typically quarterbacks burn the Bucs, but he's also banged up. Ladd McConkey missed last week. We probably expect him to play this weekend, but he's also somebody who's nursing some stuff. And behind Ladd McConkey, it's not really this swarm of amazing receivers. You do have to watch out for Palmer being a deep threat, and I'm sure they'll take their shots against the Buccaneers, considering what they have working against them. And then Will Dissly, who has been a huge piece to that offense at tight end, who would be a huge mismatch for the Buccaneers, despite what they just did against Bowers, because, they just shoved all those receiving yards and catches to Meyer, who I guess was their answer to everything. Now they're working with their backup tight end, who I'm sure will still do very well against the Buccaneers, but the offense is not at full strength right now. So that is something where the Chargers also are going to be leaning on their defense, just like the Buccaneers want to lean on their offense. So it's going to be a little bit of strength versus strength, weaknesses versus weaknesses. And I expect it to be a very competitive game. But I do expect the Chargers to munch up some yards, because I don't know what other choice Todd has when it comes to running his defense. Out there, he had 25 plays with one linebacker on the field. I think he was doing 5-1-5. And you can't run that all game. You can't run it all game. And it's going to come down to, is a guy like Vi Jones who had an all right game. I saw some nice things. I don't think he made any splash plays, but I don't think he made any detrimental ones either, outside of, the Raiders catching the Bucs in a bad spot and going one-on-one versus Bowers, which,
no one wants to see that.
No, and Vi Jones doesn't want to see that. So that was a bad, good on the Raiders for catching the Bucs there in that. Yeah. So this is a yell at your TV type of game. I don't know how else to explain it. The Buccaneers defense has looked a lot better the last few weeks. Of course, their opponents have been a lot worse. And now they're going to go up in weight class, which means we're going to go right back to kind of the stuff that we used to see when they were playing playoff caliber teams in the first half of the season, which is teams going down the field and munching up a bunch of yards and probably going 380 to 420 in that range against Tampa Bay. So it's going to come down. And by the way, the Chargers do not give the ball away. And it seems like Tampa Bay right now is loving that. So that's going to be an X factor where it's heavily tilted into the Chargers' favor of a team that loves to protect the football. And you're facing a team right now that is not locked in at protecting the football. 13 interceptions, 18 turnovers this season, -2 turnover differential. For as much as I love Liam Cohen, and I personally, I think what he has done with the offense is a step up than what Dave Canales did, even though I think the hate or the venom sent Dave Canales' way for what he did last year was far too much, and he did amazing things for the Bucs in a lot of ways, and he's doing amazing things right now in Carolina. One of the biggest messages that he preached ad nauseum was protect the football, protect the football, protect the football. And you saw that with Baker. You saw that in the offense. And that was a big reason why the Buccaneers made the playoffs last year, is because of that turnover differential. They forced a bunch. They didn't give a lot away. They need to get back to the basics in that regard. And I don't know if Liam has fully stressed protect the football enough. And I think as explosive as the offense is, it comes with some risk. And that's what you kind of see when you see Baker throw that ball over Cade Otton's head because of, Cody Malco had a fantastic game, but he did give up that pressure there, getting sent backwards, put the team in a bad spot there with, I think, that play call. And ultimately it led to a turnover instead of maybe playing it a little bit safer and just leaning on the run game. It's so darn good right now. You can't really go wrong. And, I would rather force a team to, and look, if the defense gets sucked in because of that run, great. It's just going to open up all your play action stuff. So, overall, I see this as a little bit of a headbanger, but probably a head scratcher for a lot of fans too when it's all said and done.
All right. Well, Evan is going to lay out what is going to happen. We're busting out that crystal ball. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Locked On Bucs fans, I know you're like me and your holiday shopping list is far from complete. If that's the case, I've got the perfect gift for the passionate sports fans in your life. Perhaps you've heard of Ice Shaker. Ice Shaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB and will make the ideal gift. Created and used by the Gronkowski brothers, Ice Shakers has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with workout bottles, and this is the gift that you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout to save 25% on your order. Their patented twist-in agitator breaks up powders, but is silent when you shake. Instead of hearing that annoying ball that's always rattling around, you don't hear that. The agitator also works as a strainer as well. It makes for a very solid tailgating cup to mix drinks. This is already the favorite cup in my house, and I'm having to fight both of my sons for it because it's mine, and they keep trying to take it from me. They're also customizable. Send them your logo and check out their custom shop to customize your favorite bottles. Turnaround time on custom bottles is about 3 to 5 business days. Order your team branded bottles today at iceshaker.com. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. Ice Shakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. Ice Shakers. Wrapping things up here on a WTSP Wednesday episode of Locked On Bucs, and it's time to bust out that crystal ball. And I'm going to make you look a little deeper into the crystal ball before we get to our normal predictions, because I'm curious how you think the Bucs are going to react to the situation that they're in. You mentioned they were running with basically one linebacker most of the game. You got Vi Jones. They just signed Deion Jones, of course, who infamously caught the last pass through by Jameis Winston as a Buccaneers quarterback when he was with the Atlanta Falcons. He's on the practice squad now, but no Antoine Winfield Jr., no Jordan Whitehead, no Mike Edwards. You've got Kayvon Merriweather, which shout out to him. He had a great game on Sunday. Really good game. Yeah, I thought he played really well. You got Christian Izien back there as a safety. On the practice squad, you got Marcus Banks, you got Rashad Wisdom, and you have every Buccaneers favorite player or Buccaneers fans' favorite player, Ryan Neal. Which one or which ones are getting elevated from the practice squad for this game?
It's a really good question. I mean, I have a tough time believing Deion Jones is going to come in day one and learn that defense.
I just meant the safeties.
Yeah,
I don't think Deion
Oh,
Jones.
okay. Yeah. You know what? I need to hear Todd Bowles on that one, because you have to know what Marcus and Rachaad have been doing on the practice squad all year. So you got a handful of dudes who've been working with this team from rookie minicamp essentially versus Ryan Neal, who was here last year but has to familiarize himself with the system again. Is he in playing shape?
Football shape.
Yeah, I mean, at least Mike Edwards was, on teams, bouncing around, practicing. He just wasn't playing in games. Ryan Neal was not on a team, right? He was just scooped up off the scrap heap. So
Starbucks cashier.
I would imagine Ryan Neal would be the promotion that if it comes down to it, Bowles is going to lean towards a more experienced guy. And I don't think that Ryan Neal is going to be a part of the defensive game plan. But if somebody goes down, you have to just hope that he can hold his water enough versus the undrafted rookies who, again, I can't say one way or the other unless, we hear from Todd Bowles on Wednesday and he says, you know what, Rachaad Wisdom's looking great in practice. He's ready for this opportunity. Rachaad, at least knowing Rachaad, through watching him in high school, college, he is built very much to the mold. He is Antoine Winfield Jr.-esque with his mold, probably leans more towards a Christian Izien type. So if Izien were to get injured, I would think that you would want Rachaad to replace what Izien does. And maybe that's taken into account that hey, I got to worry about who's going to potentially get hurt in this game. And if it's Izien, I want Rachaad in there. If it's Tyke, I want, I don't know how that goes, because then you bring Izien into the nickel spot, and then you need to shove a safety up there, and maybe that's more Neal. I don't know. I'm talking out my butt right now, but that would be my guess. Final answer at this point, Ryan Neal, but subject to change.
Yeah, we won't hold it against you if you're wrong. It was an out of left field question that you were not prepared for, but I thought, you know what, it's pertinent because we all know that one of these safeties is getting hurt in this game, because that's just how the Bucs are right now. But busting out the crystal ball, taking a look at this weekend's matchup with the 8-5 Los Angeles Chargers, your all-time favorite collegiate coach, Jim Harbaugh on the sideline there for the Chargers. I'm sorry. I regret nothing.
Yeah.
All right. Who is your predictive player of the
I don't want to be here anymore. Predictive player of the game. I don't know how Bucky's feeling this week, but they do need him. But Rachaad White stepped up in a big way, taking on that lead back role, and I think they'll just lean right back into him. It's very clear that he can handle it. He's probably a little bit fresher, certainly fresher than Bucky right now, who's battling a litany of injuries. So with me thinking that the rushing game is going to be very important in this contest, and maybe he can make some things happen as a receiver, give me Rachaad White as my player of the game. We'll say north of 100 yards total, receiving and rushing, and sprinkle in a tutty.
I like it. Back-to-back weeks with over 100 all-purpose yards and getting in the end zone. Did not enjoy having Rachaad White on my fantasy bench and Bucky Irving in my starting lineup, and then proceeding to lose by 4 points.
Ouch.
Yeah, not a great time.
You hate to see it.
You do hate to see it. Luckily, I had already clinched the playoffs, though, so no harm, no foul. But, all right. So we got Rachaad, 100 all-purpose, a touchdown. What's your bold prediction for this?
Bold prediction, Baker Mayfield, south of 200 yards passing.
Oh.
Yeah, I think they're going to lean on the rushing game. I haven't seen them hit a big play really go vertical all season. I think you're going to see a lot of, the screens, all the stuff that we're used to seeing. Just the Chargers defense, they're going to be all over it. Love the way that they'll probably game plan for Liam Cohen. That the coaching staff over there in LA is phenomenal. And I just think that eventually in this game, even though you would think that the Bucs are going to have to play catch up at some point, I do think that they're going to have to lean into that rushing game. And I don't know if Baker's going to be spraying the ball everywhere. So it's a bold prediction. We'll see if it pans out. But yeah, I think that we might see this being a bit more of a grindier game.
Well, you said Baker Mayfield, and I thought you were going with 0 turnovers, and I was going to be real happy. Under 200 passing yards does not bode well for Mike Evans' quest for 1,000. He needs 102.5 yards per game the rest of the season to hit that 1K mark. It's looking pretty dicey, but if anybody will figure out how to do it, it'll be Mike Evans, and then, of course, Baker and Liam want to get him there, but you can't force things to the detriment of the team in order to get his streak going. But we got Rachaad having a big day. We got Baker having a less than exciting afternoon. This smells to me like you're picking the Chargers in this one. What's your score prediction?
I am going to be picking the Chargers. I'm going to have it 27-20 Chargers. I think the couple of field goals you see from the Bucs are Chase McLaughlin specials, maybe a 51er, a 53er. Some of these like longer ranged field goals that they just, these drives stall out. But I do think it's going to be like halftime 14-10, something like that. I don't see the problem is, I don't know how many possessions the Buccaneers are going to get in this game. I think the Chargers are going to milk the clock. So 27-20, and I think they're going to be effective to put points up. So that's that will be my pick.
All right. Well, I'll take the heat on this one. I've done a terrible job of checking in with you on Fridays to make sure that you're sticking with your prediction, or if you wanted to change it. I need to make sure that I do that this week before I go live on Friday's preview show. Give you the opportunity to pivot.
Also, fun fact, Todd Bowles has never won as the Bucs head coach a road AFC game.
Stupendous.
I believe he's 4-13 against AFC teams as the Bucs head coach. Picking up his 4th win against the Raiders, obviously.
That is incredible news. Yeah, love that. Absolutely love that. Evan, what do we have going on over at 10 Tampa Bay and 10tampabay.com?
Yeah, just remember that the Blitz airs every Sunday, 8:30 in the morning on 10 Tampa Bay, but you can find it on our YouTube page at 10 Tampa Bay. Check that out. We always have our Locked On Burning Question of the Week. So, and I like to post them on my Twitter as well at eCloskeyWTSP. You should be able to find them there also.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this episode. Please make sure you're checking out everything that Evan is doing on 10 Tampa Bay and at 10tampabay.com. Check out what I'm doing over at the 813.tv. Follow on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at Yarcho_Bucs, at eCloskeyWTSP. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. And of course, make sure you are following on YouTube with those notifications turned on, as well as your favorite podcast platform. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.